Welcome. This is podcast. I'm your host, Zach Schwartz, and if you're joining us for the first time, maybe on YouTube, hello, welcome to the podcast. This man that's coming on today, he's been one of my oldest friends, and I mean, he's here. He's NBA, he's soccer, he's teaching. He's about to graduate from Bowling Green State University, and it is Kyle Milner joining me today to talk some Champions League and talk about the European soccer world in general. Kyle, how are you doing today? Of course, of course. It's been a while since you've been on here. You've been too busy doing, working with the BG soccer team and in school teaching and all that stuff. And now you're coaching your own club team too. I don't know if you want to share that at all. Any experiences with that? The club coaching thing is really cool to me, at least. Just how you've been able to rise up through that already and have your own team. Really, you're not an assistant or anything like that. You've got your own group, right? That's awesome. Yeah, I know you've been analyzing different tactics and stuff like that for a while now, and now getting your own opportunity to run your team is really an incredible experience at this young of our age here as seniors in college. So, the other big thing about you that's pertinent to this podcast is that you're a Manchester City fan, who some can arguably say is the best club in the world at the moment. They're destroying the English Premier League, 14 points clear there going into the weekend. I will say we're going to release this episode on Monday, April 5th. We're recording it on Saturday. So if our points and tables are a little bit off, that's why, but we're going to try to speak in generalities here. It's because of that, due to the the nature of the sport this weekend. However, Manchester City are in first place. They're going to be in first place after this weekend, and they are by and large the favorites for this year's Champions League. That's where we're going to start out, is talking about the Champions League and start with Manchester City. Your citizens are in a matchup against Borussia Dortmund, who struggled a bit this year. Right now they're in fifth place in the Bundesliga when we're accustomed to seeing them in the top two, sometimes competing with Bayern, but also sometimes being a distant second. How do you feel about your team, Manchester City, going in there against a Dortmund team who, despite their struggles, are still, really dangerous with a lot of young talent surrounded around Erling Haaland? So I have 538 pulled up, the brilliant statistics website run by Nate Silver. I believe now it's a part of ESPN, but if you ever are interested in stats or you're a bit nerdy about where I get some information from, 538 is an awesome resource. They right now have Manchester City as a 37% chance to win the Champions League, ahead of teams like Bayern Munich, which is at 17%. Chelsea's at third at 14%, which is really interesting. But regardless, they're basically giving City a 1 in 3 chance against the field of winning the Champions League. Manchester City have been dominant this year, obviously going on a 20-something, I believe, unbeaten and no losses run earlier in the season. I lost the word there. Where do you feel like the 1 in 3 chance is right? Are they really this dominant over teams like Bayern and stuff like that? Or what have you seen, watching City week in, week out, that you think could pull that off? Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I almost, we're recording this on Saturday. The Final Four is about to take place with Gonzaga playing UCLA and Baylor playing Houston. There's almost a Gonzaga feel to Manchester City at this point. Manchester City's won numerous English Premier Leagues. They've destroyed the English Premier League now multiple times, including this season as well. And yet, as you mentioned, the quarterfinal stage, the semifinal stage, and a lot of times it's been against teams that they're even favored against, but it's a Barcelona, especially in Pep's earlier years and before Pep even came, that they'd run to a roadblock, and despite having that, talent, that they weren't able to still come through in those later stages. It's almost show it to me, do it, you have to do it to do it type thing. And Manchester City still has not done it. I believe they haven't made a final, right? Is that correct? Right. Even like PSG, for instance, we've seen in the final at least. I would not put PSG over this year's Manchester City team whatsoever, but that's where you make the point that the Gonzaga comparison holds up. And in that way, even like you mentioned, that Manchester City plays more competition. I'll do a different one. Is almost like a Virginia or Villanova maybe before those teams won their championships, right? If you remember, in the earlier part of the 2010s, Jay Wright's Villanova teams would falter every single time. Sweet 16, second round type thing like that. So maybe that's a better comparison, is those early Villanova teams before they won the back-to-back titles. Because it's almost like if City actually do win this year, then it's just the world is their oyster at that point, because they finally have done the thing. They get the It's not even a monkey. It's like a silverback gorilla off their back at this point, that they haven't been able to do it yet with Pep. Yeah. Right, and Villanova, of course, showing that culture in this year's March Madness tournament, still making the Sweet 16 despite missing one of their best players that I talked about in the NCAA tournament preview pod when I said that Winthrop was easily going to beat them, and obviously I was wrong about that one. But to your point, that culture is now building, and we'll see if Manchester City, along with the numbers, the data show that they are heavy favorites. We'll see then if that culture can provide that extra level to finally get over this hump. We talked about Bayern Munich a little bit. They're facing off against PSG in the quarterfinals, which is a rematch of last year's final, actually, that Bayern Munich, of course, won on their way to another treble from the club. So they come in second in 538's model here for the data-driven, numbers of winning the title. I personally would put Manchester City, Bayern Munich, and then, I don't know, maybe 50 layers of whatever molecule you want to say in between these two. I think Man City and Bayern Munich are just a cut above this year. And I really do. And I think, while this number here, 37 to 17% that 538 has, I think that's far off. I don't think Man City has double the chance of Bayern Munich to win. I think it's very close between the two. But I see Bayern Munich as the clear second team to this. And I personally, you'd look at Bayern Munich, PSG, last year's final, this will be a close game. I'm not sure at all if that's going to be the case, especially with PSG having some internal turmoil, almost like they always do at that club. Are you also as high on Bayern Munich, or do you think PSG is going to give them a better run out in this quarterfinal matchup? Oh, wasn't it like No, it wasn't Macedonia. I'm gonna look it up as you keep talking, and then I'm like, okay, okay. North Macedonia. They lost 2-1. I didn't know there was. I thought it was just Macedonia. I didn't know there was a north or south or. Mm, yeah, and some live reporting here. Bayern just beat Leipzig 1-0, who was second in the Bundesliga coming into today, and so now they're 7 points clear. So maybe some more breathing room up top, at a little bit more than they're accustomed to. Actually, usually, maybe there's one team that stays in the race, but this has been a little deeper in the season for a Bundesliga title challenge. So maybe they're a bit more tired, especially with how long last year's season lasted with the Champions League. I believe they finished up in August, if I remember correctly. Was last year's final because of the pandemic. But then again, like you said, Bayern's Bayern. They're the most proven team out there. It used to be Pep's Barcelona, and then followed by Luis Enrique in the mid 2010s, right? That were just the most dependable. They may not always win, but they're always going to show up, give a tough game, that type of thing. Bayern Munich are that team right now in European soccer. So it's really hard to ever count them out. But I think you make a good point. If Neymar and Kylian Mbappe, who's actually been the subject of some rumors of him leaving, which would be disastrous, I think, for this PSG side. I'm not sure where. It's probably Real Madrid could be the only place that could afford him with the state Barcelona's finances they're in right now. But I just think that when they're on, they're on. As you saw, I'm not sure if you got to watch it. I watched it live and it was miserable. The PSG 4-1 against Barcelona just this very year in the round of 16. And when their whole counter-attacking scheme is working well, it's incredible. Now, the flip side of that is the second leg of that PSG-Barcelona game where, sure, PSG had the 3-goal lead. However, we'll remind people they blew a 4-goal lead against Barcelona a couple years ago. So they probably weren't as relaxed as you normally would be in that situation. And PSG came out flat. And Barcelona missed a couple opportunities. Messi missed a penalty. Stuff like that. But it could have been a much closer tie. So that's the flip side coin of it. Is maybe how motivated they come into this match. And you'd think there'd be extra motivation with the fact that they lost last year's Champions League. PSG, similar to Manchester City, has come closer and closer and closer and still hasn't had that payoff. But that's the thing with PSG. Nothing ever really makes sense with them, right? How many times have you gotten excited for PSG against a top team in European competition and they fall flat, right? I think that's a fair approximation, especially with the way, like you said, Alfonso Davies has been great this year. North American product from Canada. But like you mentioned, I mean, there's going to be fireworks on both sides of this tie. And it's the tie of the round. So I'm sorry we're getting through it early for the listeners out there, but it's certainly the tie of the round, and it's going to be a great matchup coming up to you next week. So another tie that's really interesting. It's also a rematch of a previous final. Real Madrid against Liverpool. Now, Real Madrid has had its struggles this year, but right now they're still in position, and we'll talk about this a little bit later with La Liga, that they're still in title contention in Spain domestically. They're in the Champions League quarterfinals when Barcelona and Atletico, their principal title challengers, did not make it that far. And now they're matched up against the Liverpool side, who have truly had the year from hell. I know on the preview pod we did. I don't think you and I did. I think I did it with Will last September. I talked about how I thought Liverpool would finally catch up with them. It happens in sports where you just have bad runs. You've been going for so long, that type of thing. And obviously, I didn't think it would be to this level. I think I picked Liverpool in third, still to be safely in the Champions League spots, but adrift from the title race. That has not occurred. They're in seventh right now, and they are in danger of missing the Champions League entirely if they don't win this year's Champions League, which is a really interesting proposition. Virgil van Dijk still injured. They've had battled injuries to Jordan Henderson, to Alisson, to almost all their key players this season. And of course, they still are fearsome with Mane, Salah, though Bobby Firmino being a little less effective than he usually is in that kind of number 9 role that he plays up there. So it's a really interesting matchup, of course, with also the fact that Sergio Ramos will be out for the first leg of this tie, and he'll also be out for the El Clasico this upcoming week, which we'll talk about a little bit later in the pod. So with all that being said, Kyle, where are you leaning with this tie? With both stories, left, right, everything like that. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, 100%. So, and to your point, Liverpool, I mentioned they're in seventh as of right now. So, assuming if they lose to Arsenal, they will be 5 points behind Chelsea. Chelsea, of course, getting beat by West Brom this weekend already. So they drop points. They're the team in fourth right now. So Liverpool can move up to be within 2 points of that coveted fourth spot. Of course, they still have to deal with the likes of West Ham and Tottenham potentially picking up points this weekend, and Everton as well on level on points of the game in hand. So I just want to go on one thing real quick, then we can talk about Real Madrid. You think if they don't have European football, Klopp could actually get let go? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say I feel like this puts them on thinner ice, perhaps. So maybe if they have back-to-back campaigns, going into next year of no European football, especially if they don't make the Champions League this year, so they just focus on the league, and then they come up in sixth or something like that next year. Then I could see that. But I was thinking 1 year and still a pandemic-altered year, where Anfield is rocking when there's fans there, so that's a big disadvantage for them this season. So that makes a lot of sense. Shifting over to Real Madrid, their opponent, they've had such a weird year, just between going back and forth in inconsistent form. They still find themselves the last Spanish team standing. They're in third place right now in La Liga. As we talked about earlier, there is still a title race over there that we'll kind of recap a little bit for those of you who thought it was a done deal with Atletico in the lead, which it was. Now it's not. They won today 2-0 over bottom. I believe they're in the bottom, Ibar. So Karim Benzema, by the way, for people who maybe stopped paying attention to Real Madrid after the Ronaldo left, Karim Benzema has just shown that he's a tank. He's an animal goal scoring machine. He scored again today. I am fascinated to see what Zidane does this week, because as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, they have a big first leg against Liverpool. They're missing Ramos. All right, they played a 3-back today. Actually, I looked up. I was curious about their lineup when you mentioned center back pairings. I looked at their lineup today. They played a 3-back with Mendy on the left, and then I would presume they put. I don't think they played Varane today, but I presume they put Rafael Varane in the center of that three. So you have the tie on Tuesday against Liverpool, and then you have basically, we were talking about this pre-show, basically a title eliminator on Saturday between Barcelona and Real Madrid, who are both a couple points back still of Atletico. Real Madrid's already played Atletico twice. Barcelona still plays Atletico head-to-head, so that's why some people are saying that they could actually take over Atletico in the La Liga standings. And if you're wondering how the hell Barcelona is still in contention after their year, we'll talk about that in a bit too, because it's been a very fascinating turnaround. So I'm really curious to see, with some of the injuries and stuff like that, like Sergio Ramos, if Varane plays the full 11 both games and is still going for both these competitions, or if he pulls his punches in one of them, at least for this first leg, sees if he can get by against Liverpool with a 1-0 deficit or something like that, and then plays the full squad on Saturday against Barcelona to really take the lead. Because as we've seen in previous iterations in Real Madrid managers, they've prioritized the Champions League over the Spanish League. There are many times during their treble, well, not their treble run, but their 3 in a row, right, Champions League run where Barcelona actually won the Spanish League multiple times. So we've seen it before, that type of prioritization. I'm really curious to see what he does. I know you obviously don't know Zidane personally, but if you were in his shoes, you're a coach now. If you were in his shoes and you're looking at the fabric of Real Madrid, what are you doing with these type of two critical matches in the coming week? I'll look it up real quick. The Classico should be. I'll look up both of those if you want to. If you want to keep making your point, either way. So the Liverpool game is in Madrid. Sorry, keep going. And then I'm still looking for the other one. But keep going. What you were saying now. So it's in Madrid now. So you know that for the first leg. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just for the folks at home, the Barcelona game is also in Madrid. So both games at home upcoming this week for Madrid. But I think it makes sense. I mean, you're Real Madrid, you have the squad depth. You should be able to trot out a really strong lineup in both of these games and stay competitive. We'll mention later, Barcelona's been on a tear recently. So even if it's competitive, you still might lose that game. But if so, then you're just putting all your eggs into the basket for the second leg at Anfield in a couple weeks. So, which speaking of which, are there going to be fans for that by that time? Because I know, yeah, there's the big speculation that in certain states over here in America, obviously, that some NBA fans might be able to have fans sooner other than later. For instance, in Florida, I've mentioned we're hosting the next UFC pay-per-view in Jacksonville with a full crowd. So, like, presumably the Miami Heat would also be able to have fans in their arena. I mean, have you seen any of that for England? My guess is England's going to be a bit more cautious than Florida. Okay. Yeah. Right. Especially the state of Florida. Hmm. Yeah. Which makes sense. I mean, go back to our days. For those of you that don't know, Kyle and I graduated high school together, and we played on the same soccer team. He was the goalie. I was an outside back. And I mean, when you have I mean, we wouldn't get the biggest crowds, but when you have some people there, when some friends show up, on a random Wednesday, like it really, it made me feel different. It was really nice to hear some cheers and stuff like that for a squad that we usually didn't get them before then. So I certainly understand just the psychology aspect of it, especially when it's Liverpool and it's Anfield. Like, those are two mystic words in the soccer universe as well. So the last Champions League matchup. Oh, and one last thing about that I will say is I think that's the most even tie of the round is Real Madrid-Liverpool. I think that is the most even, toughest to call, in my opinion. Yeah. So this one I think is the most uneven, and it's just because, I mean, there's every couple years Porto does this from the Portuguese league. They just come in and they beat a giant. They knocked out Juventus last time out, and they just come in and they're randomly in the quarterfinals with all these English and Spanish and German juggernauts. So good on Porto. They're matched up though with Chelsea, who, since they've sacked Frank Lampard, which personally in the moment I felt like was a little quick, and they appointed Thomas Tuchel, formerly of Borussia Dortmund. I was obviously completely wrong, because Tuchel has since taken Chelsea on a tear. They're now in fourth in the English league, as we mentioned, though. Their unexpected loss this week puts them at danger of falling out of the top four. But they knocked off Atletico, the Spanish league leaders, in the round of 16, and now they're here in the quarterfinals with, frankly, a favorable matchup. Yep. Yeah, and Chelsea fans everywhere. Where, as I mentioned, Lampard was sacked and I can see it. It was a very uneven season for Chelsea. They were down around the 7th, 8th, 9th spot in the table. There were diminishing returns with some of their big summer signings like Timo Werner and such like that. Pulisic wasn't getting enough run-in. There were a lot of issues with their squad rotation. Tuchel, at least for now, has stabilized that. So it's going to be interesting now to see how that's going to translate into the match against, like you said, Porto. When they make a run like this, it's because they have some talent. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not sure exactly who, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple European giants circle their players and pick a couple off in the summer, because that's usually what happens to a club like Porto. And then they move on and they build up again and they build a team full of heart, and in the 3 years they'll be in the Champions League quarterfinals again. Like, it's a cycle. It's almost what Ajax had, or someone like to a larger scale Dortmund has. So credit to them for making it this far. But I just think Chelsea, despite the blip this morning, obviously we keep saying that because it's truly shocking for them to lose to West Brom, most likely going down West Brom. Despite that blip this morning, I think that they will roll. Actually, I feel most confident about this one out of any tie in the quarterfinals. So I will go ahead and make, just so we're on the record and so people can yell at us when we're wrong. I like to read the emails that say you were wrong, as if I didn't make the pick myself and I know I'm wrong. So I'll run through and we'll take Chelsea, Bayern, City. I'm looking at the matchup. Real Madrid. I hate it, but I feel better about where Madrid is right now than I do about where Liverpool is. All four. So if if anyone is of the gambling mind out there, pick against every single pick against us. It's never good when we agree. So I want to shift over to England because, as we talked about, Man City, they're there, and the other two spots in the Champions League, well, the second and third spots, excuse me, are pretty satisfied too. Manchester United's been consistent there in that second spot for a couple weeks now. Leicester in that third spot, despite their defeat to Manchester City today, still secure in there, 5 points clear of Chelsea, with both teams already playing their games this round. And then it gets interesting, though, in the fourth spot. You have Chelsea, you have West Ham out of nowhere, who, as I mentioned, I'm wrong a lot. I nailed a couple things in the preseason pod. I had Man U as not a title challenger, but in second, and that looks pretty solid right now. One thing I missed, though, is that I had West Ham getting relegated. So good on West Ham, good on the Hammers for proving me wrong, because if they beat Wolves on Monday, once again, if you're listening to this, the match has probably already happened. So if West Ham won, they're in fourth place, which is insane to think about. Jose Mourinho has led a small turnaround at Tottenham to get them into sixth, 3 points out of Chelsea with the match to play this weekend. Liverpool and Everton, we already talked about, being seventh and eighth. So with this run-in, we've got 9-10 games left, just about. Is this still Chelsea's Champions League spot to lose, or do you now, and we're talking about the West Brom defeat a lot, but an upset defeat like that is major at this time of the year. Just one game with it this tight really causes a lot of issues. Do you have a team that you look at that's like, they're going to put it together and finish these last 9-10 games strong, only dropping points here and there? Or do you still think it's going to be Tuchel's Chelsea in the final Champions League spot? Yeah. 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 I feel like West. Oh, yeah, right. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I was going to say a lot of pundits projected a championship caliber side this year for Chelsea, so that's a fantastic point. I was going to make the same point. I feel like West Ham is destined for the Europa League in fifth place. Whether it's Chelsea that stays in front of them, whether someone like Tottenham leapfrogs them, I just feel like they're destined for fifth place. Hmm. Oh, I never talk about it. Hang on. I'm looking it up now. I'm looking at their roster. Suchek. Suchek? Thomas Suchek? Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Outside of my hate for Jose Mourinho that I've articulated on past episodes of this podcast. No, I 100% agree with you. Oh, the one with Spurs? Really? Wow. I might have to watch this then. No. What's what's it called and what's it on? I'll write a note here to check it out then. Okay, nice. We'll use my parents. All right. If now that I know it's on Amazon Prime, I'll look it up. So I just can't stand Marino from the Real Madrid days and the rivalry with Pep and everything. But yeah. So speaking of Real Madrid, there's a title race in La Liga. Now, I don't think I did a podcast on this recently, but about January, if I had done one, I would have said that it was over. Atletico Madrid was up 10, 12 points, with a lot of matches to go, but Luis Suarez is absolutely destroying it over there in Madrid now after leaving Barcelona. And it seemed like it was a wrap. Diego Simeone, again, coming in and with a weaker Barcelona and Real Madrid side would go in and win the La Liga title. It's not so the case anymore. Simeone's Atletico have fallen a little bit. They've been stagnant. They've been a little flat. They're still in the league by a couple points. But Barcelona have been on an absolute tear. Even despite their losses to PSG in league, they've been crushing it. Earlier, you were hinting at the possibility of Lionel Messi going to Man City. You didn't say it. But let's be realistic. Messi's, if he does leave, no? Oh, who are you talking about then? Uh, I see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. 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 100% agree. Because Messi was so upset with Suarez, one of his best friends. And got to remember, too, for people, Aguero is Argentinian. So they've played a lot together. And Suarez was Uruguayan, or is still Uruguayan. So there's that South America connection now that in the locker room now is a big part of Barcelona's dressing room. I think it makes the most sense for him to go to Barcelona, and I think Messi would love that. I think Aguero's still a really effective player, and there's a lot of forward depth, at Barcelona. Fati's been injured. There's been a lot of young players coming through, but we could use another striker, especially if it makes Messi happy. Another thing too is at first, if you remember in the summer, I had congratulated you already on signing Lionel Messi because I figured he was gone. Now I almost lean to that he might stay. He might actually stay based on how the presidential election worked out. Jan Laporta is coming back to the club, and Messi very vocally even showed. And Messi's a very quiet guy, but he showed he was voting and stuff like that. Like he's very invested now into this. And on the field as well, he just seems happy. Ricky Puig has been getting more time in central midfield. Pedri has taken off this year from the B team, as has, I can't say his name, but another young midfielder has been playing really well. I believe it's like Iliax or something like that. Has been playing really well. Oscar Menendez is in the side now. And obviously Fati's been injured, but Messi loves playing with Fati. Trincao on the wing. So there's just a ton of now young talent, especially Pedri. A lot of people have been comparing Pedri to my favorite player, Andres Iniesta. Who, I mean, that's a bold comparison, but the kid's 18 and he's destroying it in central midfield and has a telepathic connection with Messi that I haven't seen in a while. So it just seems like Messi is enjoying his soccer again, which is the big key at Barcelona, right? And it's why, to be honest, I think Barcelona could actually pull off the La Liga win. They have to beat Real Madrid this week. They have to beat Atletico in a couple weeks. But the way they've been playing, and Ronald Koeman has switched to a 3-back from time to time. Gerard Piqué is now back. He's been out almost the entire season. I mean, I can make the case where it almost looks like it made me excited to watch Barcelona again. In their last game before the international break, they destroyed a Real Sociedad side, putting 6 goals by them, who's been competing in the top 4 for a long time. So there's my case. There's my case for Barcelona to win La Liga, right there. And for Messi to actually stay, I think he really might now, which I'm just ecstatic about. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah, and I think another big key is that I think Messi actually would have left if Bartomeu, I think is how you pronounce the name, the former president, who's now being criminally charged with some issues, and the board had stayed. Obviously, they resigned, and there was a new election called. I think he actually would have left if they had stayed and played hardball with him, but thankfully they did not. And I think another key with that is kind of we hit on it already is though that Barca B is back, that the youth club is back, and that these players are actually getting minutes in the first team and being consistent contributors, and that it's not just one splashy signing after another and such like that, And actually another big piece too of this season, this revitalization of Barcelona, has been Antoine Griezmann's emergence. Finally, after a year and a half of being in the Barcelona uniform, he's actually been playing better and fitting in within the team. Finally, so I'm hopeful. I was completely out on Barcelona being in the title race, but now I'm hopeful, and I think they actually logically can pull it off. So we'll see. Yeah, right. Yeah, and I think Messi will transition to a 10, like you mentioned, at some point in his career. He almost functionally plays that, starts out on the right wing. But I think his next iteration will be as a 10, as you mentioned. Yeah. Mm. Yeah, 100%. And he is such a great passer of the ball as well that I think he definitely could do that as he gets a little bit slower in his age. So we're about the hour mark. Did we miss anything in the world soccer scene that you wanted to discuss? This is true. We, yeah. Yeah, we gotta save the U.S. soccer stuff. I know you're itching to discuss that. We're gonna save it, and that's gonna get a pot of its own, people. Okay. Yeah. Well, if you disagree with our picks, you can reach out to us at the assistpod at yahoo.com. And if you lose some gambling money on our picks, you can, yell at me there, send the receipt there, and I will not pay it. But, just to make you feel better, make you psychologically feel better. I usually post stuff on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. This will be up if you could, review, rate. Rating helps a lot, actually. And then this one will also be on YouTube eventually. YouTube only lets you upload 15 episodes a day. I know if you listen to my last podcast, I said I'm working on it. I am working on it. It just takes some time to backlog the whole catalog. That's going to be out maybe on this is coming out on Monday. It should be out in the coming days sometime the week this pod is up. And Kyle Milner, what do you have to plug? You have something to plug on YouTube. Let's hear it. There you go. Of course, man. Of course. How much money is it going to take to get the vlog channel under the assist umbrella? All right, all right. Sounds fun. Maybe a tease later. Kyle, thanks for coming on. This is awesome. Ton of fun to have you on as always.